Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another beautiful day and another beautiful episode of the JMO Show, the Just My Opinion show here on the Ethernet Community Hockey channel on YouTube and anywhere else you want to take it on social media. We're on Twitter and we're on Instagram. We don't post much, but we're on there, so go find us if you want. Yeah, welcome to another episode. Let's get right into it with that beautiful, amazing, wonderful intro that everybody got to see last week on accident. But yeah, let's get into the show, everybody. And there it is. Was having trouble there for a second. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the JMO Show with your host, myself, Andrew Smith. Today, we're going to be talking about active veteran players, their stats and their discussion, and have a discussion about them, do a little analytical debate here. First order of business that I want to get out of the way right quick. We're starting the age with the oldest and then going down. My chair's stuck to the blanket I got around my feet. I will preface that it is cold inside my house or apartment as it is outside, which is totally fine. I can put on as many pairs of clothing as I feel like it to keep myself warm throughout the day. No problem there. But I don't know why I find the need to say that every single episode, but I digress. So 41 is our oldest player on this list. We are ending at 36 years old. So starting right off the bat, I'm going to go through the list of the 35-year-olds that are not listed because they were not eligible at the time of me putting this stat stuff together last night, actually. So unless somebody had a birthday either yesterday or today, they're not 36, and I genuinely did not have enough time and resources to be able to do this full stats thing for however many I did, plus another 13, 16, however many there are. So let's go through the list very quickly of the 35-year-old players that are not on this list. Andrew Cogliano, Matt Zuccarello, Nick Foligno, Cam Talbot, Nick Holden, Claude Giroux, Derek Brassard. Yeah, Brassard. Derek Brassard. I was like, I've never heard of a Brassard before. Brassard. Jordy Ben, Anze Kopitar, Mark Vlasic, Phil Kessel, Alec Martinez, Cal Clutterbuck, Justin Braun, Chris Letang, Matt Irwin, and the reason I'm prefacing this at the start is Sidney Crosby. We will not be discussing Sidney Crosby today. If you are interested, I can keep going down the list of veteran players. Veteran in this case being active players by age, not by how many years they've been in the league. But we do have one of the stats that we'll be looking at is years experience, which some of them will shock you and some of them won't, I guess. But yeah, let's get into it. We're going to shoot on over to our beautiful, more well-kept little thing that we've got here instead of what we usually have. And look, you guys can hopefully read this now. So in the green, we've indicated goalies. Blue is a good stat. Red is a bad stat. Everybody that's been here before knows that. So starting at the top there, our oldest player active is Craig Anderson, a goalie in Buffalo. We've got Mark Giordano at 39 years old, Eric Stahl, Ryan Suter, Joe Pavelski, Zach Perry, and Jeff Carter at 38 years old, and then a bunch of 37-year-olds and a bunch of 36-year-olds. the problem with these episodes on stats and analysis and discussion and everything is, if you are middle of the pack, if you're not aggressively good or aggressively bad, you're not going to be discussed as much. So you have somebody like Patrice Bergeron, who has been a very consistent, and I actually will underline his name. I should now I'll put an underline under his name, because he is on this list, at least, the second longest tenured player behind Craig Anderson at 19, Patrice Bergeron being 18 years in the league, but he is 4 years younger than Craig Anderson. So, if we take a look to 0203, would have been Craig Anderson's first year. 0304 was Patrice Bergeron's year. But one thing, if we're talking about years experience, I want to point out Pierre Bellemare and Derek Ryan, 7 years experience, 8 years experience, 14-15 and 15-16, and then right behind them, Ryan Reeves, 10-11. These three players didn't start playing in the NHL until they were in their late 20s. So, it's very surprising to me to see that, but be very interesting to see why. I honestly don't know why. Maybe they were held up in something or what, but I don't know. So it's very interesting to see the wide range between 19 and 7 years of experience. We do have a couple goalies on the list. We will talk about them separately. Obviously, you can see they don't have any goals, assists, or points or anything like that. Well, actually, that's not true. That's one stat that I very much wish I would have looked up to see if any of these goalies do actually have points. I'll have to take a look at that, and maybe look in the description of the video. If I'm able to take a look at that, I'll put it in the description, see if any of these guys have goals or assists or points in general. So as you can see here, we've got the age, player, team, position, and years experience. And then we go into their inaugural season, earliest being in 0203, as we talked about, and the latest being 15-16, which was only a couple years ago. And then their career numbers, games played, goals, points, assists, or assists and points, I should say, over the course of their entire career there. So let's go into their inaugural season first, and we will get into this, but the big discussion piece, the idea for this video was has there really been the whole stigma of there being a drop off in somebody's career as they get older and being less relevant and all that kind of stuff? We will get into a more advanced stat on that we've got down below under here, but specifically looking at their inaugural season and then going into those other stats we'll take a look at. And we might actually look at those other stats before we get to the career, so that might be something that I'll consider doing. But so if we take a look here, games played, there were a couple players. Goligoski was the only actual player. We have two goalies on that list, so it's not necessarily as fair to them, because rookie goalies aren't going to play as many games. But Alex Goligoski only playing 3 games. 3 players on our list with skaters with 0 goals in their inaugural season. Jack Johnson with Chicago, currently with Chicago, I should say. Alex Goligoski with currently with Minnesota, and Mark Giordano, 0 goals, 1 assist for 1 point in his first season. As you can see, Jack Johnson, 0 points in his first season. He only played 5 games though, and Derek Ryan, 0 assists as well. So taking a look, we've got a bunch of players that did play above let's see. I've got... Shoot, where'd that go? Okay, so... Where did that stat go? Sorry, give me 1 second. There it is. Okay, so we have 8 players that played over 80 games in their first season, that being Eric Stahl, Zach Parise, Jeff Carter, Pierre Belmar, Alex Ovechkin, Mark Stahl, and Blake Wheeler. And then we have only one player that played the full 82-game season in their first year, and that's Paul Stastny back in 06-07. We have 5 players that scored over 20 goals. I will highlight those. So 5 players with over 20 goals, 2 players with over 30 goals, and then obviously most goals in their first season was Alex Ovechkin with 52. If we take a look at assists, we've got 6 players with 20 or more assists, 3 players with 50 or more, which is pretty impressive there. And then Alex Ovechkin again with the most goals in his inaugural season. And then if we take a look at points, it's 8 players with over 30 points, and then only 1 player with over 100, that obviously being Ovechkin. Second behind him was Evgeny Malkin in his inaugural season, and then Paul Stastny. And another reason why the actual reason this came up to begin with was I was talking to my brother who watches the videos on this channel, Hello Zachary. We were talking about Evgeny Malkin, who just played his 1,000th game, and kind of just discussing the longevity of players, and as you can see, if we actually move over to career stats, we'll do career stats now. Maybe we can talk about it a little more after we're near the end there. But we have 16 players with over 1,000 games, and then 4 players with that being 1, 2, so 5 players with over 1,200 games. Sorry, I've got some stats here I wrote down that are not correct. But anyway, so we've got 5 with over 1,200 games played, and then Eric Stahl with the most games played, 1,305, 1,305. Very, very impressive. If we take a look at goals, we have just a couple players with over 400 goals, 8 players with over 400 goals, and then only 1 player with over 700, that being Alex Ovechkin. Obviously, behind Ovechkin, everybody else is in the 400s still. Evgeny Malkin having the most with 452 behind Ovechkin. We take a look at assists. We've got 10 players with 500 plus assists, and then only 3 with over 600. Well, I should say only 3 with over 600. That being Corey Perry, Ovechkin, and Evgeny Malkin again. And then Corey Perry, actually, who's currently with Tampa Bay, has jumped around a little bit in the league over the year, but has been with Tampa Bay this current season and last season, I believe. 863 career assists. And then if we move over to points, we've got 4 players with over 1,000 points over their entire career, that being Eric Stahl with 1,034. We've got Corey Perry with 1,270, 1,166 for Malkin, and Ovechkin with 1,427. Now, if we take a look at those four specifically, we've got Corey Perry here, who actually is over a point per game over his entire career. Everybody else being about 1, 2, or 300 points below their points. But Corey Perry, 1,270 points in 1,194 games. That's over a point per game. Very impressive stats for these guys, but we're going to actually move down, and you will see actually over here the list of the players not listed on this list today. Lots of lists going on, but if we go over to the discussion I alluded to earlier, that drop-off that people say some players are having, I took their first 5 season stats and matched up against their past 5 seasons, excluding the 2022-2023 season because it is currently ongoing. We do have a couple notes here. Eric Stahl did not have stats for the 2021-2022 season. Pierre Bellemare has only been in the league 8 years, so I split that up with 4 and 4, past 4 and first 4. I don't know why that part is missing. That's interesting. Anyways, and then first 3 and past 3 for Derek Ryan with only 1 season in between there. Obviously, there's seasons in between all of these, except for this guy right here, for Eric Bellemare. But I digress. So, obviously, taking a look at skaters, again, we will talk about goalies in a minute, but talking about skaters, I did not highlight... give me 1 second. I did not highlight number of games played over that 5-year period, but it does look like the 409 for Eric Stahl and 407 for Zach Parise is the most for games played in the first 5 seasons. We've got Eric Stahl with 164 goals, 194 assists for 358 points. Pretty impressive. Eric Parise, 160, 175 for 335 points. Paul Stastny, 321 points. Alex Ovechkin doing very, very impressive work, 529 points. And then Evgeny Malkin, 418 points. So if we take a look at those points leaders specifically and match that up with their games played in their first 5 years, we've got... highlighted the wrong one there. We've got 2 players, Ovechkin and Malkin, who had over a point per game in their first 5 seasons. Very impressive work there. Actually, neither of them had specifically assists or goals per game. And then looking at the negative side of things, we didn't really talk about too much. I guess we did talk a little bit about, we didn't really go into the negatives up above as much as we will here, but in 309 games, Bellemare 23-27 for 50 points. Mark Stahl in his 367 games to start, 22-64 for 86 points, and then Jack Johnson only 22 goals, 78 assists though in the 282 games he played. Ryan Reeves and Trevor Lewis, 34 and 37 points over 200 games played. Not great for the first 5 seasons, but always room to grow, I guess. And a lot of them, I was surprised to see in the last 5 years, and we will talk about a little more, how some of these guys are actually pretty consistent with what they were doing at the beginning of their season. So we've got Eric Stahl, 116 goals. Pavelski with 126 goals. Bergeron, 141 goals. 221 goals for Alex Ovechkin, and we're talking specifically about the past 5 seasons now, and then 116 goals for Evgeny Malkin, 166 assists for Ryan Suter, 167 assists for Pavelski, 170 assists for Bergeron, 221 assists for Brent Burns. Hey, Brent Burns, how you doing? 256 assists for Blake Wheeler, and 198 for Malkin. Put the goals and assists together, 293 points in the last 5 years for Pavelski. Last 5 years for Bergeron got him 311 points. 375 points for Ovechkin. 353 for Wheeler, and then 314 for Evgeny Malkin. And again, if you take a look at these guys here and their games played, very, very close. Bergeron is only 6 points away from a point per game. Ovechkin over a point per game. Wheeler over a point per game. And Malkin over a point per game. And let's all remember again, I will preface, this is the past 5 years. These guys are significantly older than they were in these stats, and these stats here. Obviously, these are veteran players. That's why we're talking about them today. They're veteran players that have been playing in this league for a very, very long time, and a lot of them, 1, 2, 3, right? 3 of them obviously in the top for points. Some of the other ones could potentially have, and I'm just not seeing it. But 3 of them, which is an impressive number, I would say. 3 of them are over a point per game. Some of them very, very, very close to being a point per game. Talking specifically about Patrice Bergeron there. Fortunately, we got to take a little look at the negatives for the past 5 years. Belmar consistently not doing great. 35 assists, 33 goals, which somehow is not the lowest on in the bottom 5 for goals, for only 68 points. 24 goals for Alex Goligoski, I should say. And then we get in to the pits here. We'll start with the better off for points. Trevor Lewis with 76, 64 for Derek Ryan, and 58 for Mark Stahl. But then we've got Jack Johnson, 9 goals, 36 assists for 45 points in 313 games. Not great. Not great at all. So that, and then Mark Stahl's 12 goals and Jack Johnson's 9 goals are clearly the bottom there for goals. So we're talking about some sort of drop off. These bottom players, specifically these 2, they are definitively the bottom for points, at least in the last 5 years for them. Jack Johnson had a little drop off, but Mark Stahl kind of staying in that bottom tier for his first 5 seasons. So arguably he has kind of stayed near the bottom of this list of this list here, at least, of veteran players. But if you look at all of these stats lined up next to each other, it's very difficult for me to say that there is actually a drop off happening. And one of the most obvious ways of showing you that is looking at the goalie stats. In their first 5 seasons, and then going into the past 5 seasons, Craig Anderson, Brian Elliott, Thomas Greiss, Yaroslav Halak, and Jonathan Quick anywhere between 69 and 249 games played in their first 5 seasons. Not a lot of starts for Anderson or Grice, but quite a few for Jonathan Quick, obviously. Tied for first in save percentage at .916 is Halak and Quick. Goals against average 2.3 for Quick is the best for their first 5 seasons. Craig Anderson taking both bottom numbers for past and first 5 years. And then Halak, .913 for saves percentage for 2.71 goals against average for the past 5 years. If you take a look at these stats here, none of these goalies have, for their first 5 seasons and their last 5 seasons, dropped below a .900, which is respectable and at best like top of the league for goalies over a span of 5 years. You have to remember a span of 5 years is an awful lot of games that you're calculating. If you zoom in a little bit and go season by season, they might fluctuate a little bit more. Some seasons going really well, some seasons going really bad to come out with these numbers. But respectively, over a 5-year period, this is some of the more respectable numbers that we see for goalies. So, bring it back to my face, I guess. So with that all being said, taking a gander at all of that, and then I do have some of the stats written down and everything here if I need them. But taking a look at all that, the discussion piece for me today would be first of all saying that a lot of these veteran players are not dropping off at a consistent rate that I can see, especially when you take a look at their first 5 seasons versus their last 5 seasons. It's not definitive. There are some players that are dropping off at least a little bit or slowing down at the very least. But I mean, Ovechkin had 106 points in his first season. He had 529 in his first 5 seasons, and then 373 points in his last 5 seasons. So, yeah, he dropped off by 200 points in the last 5 years, but he's still at over a point per game player, despite losing 500 points in the last 5 years. So and one of the other things I was going to say is, of all of these veteran players, who do I personally think has been consistently the best over their entire tenure? It's got to be Ovechkin. There's no question there. It's Ovechkin. If Crosby was on this list, he would be right there with him, but he's not. Not eligible for this list as well, at least. Second most consistent over that time period of Evgeny Malkin. He was in the top 5 for points in the first 5 and the past 5, and then for both Ovechkin and Malkin, if you take a look at their complete stats, both of them are over a point per game players. There are some other players that are over a point per game. So very, very respectable numbers, I should say, for a lot of people. Corey Perry, nobody that I've talked to regarding Corey Perry has ever said anything negative about the guy and his game. So I would say those are definitively the top 3. If you want a top 5, there's Erik Karlsson that I would throw in there. And then Bergeron. So those would be my top 5, probably being Stahl, Bergeron, Perry, Malkin, and then Ovechkin at the top. Shush phone. Sorry, I'm checking. Make sure that it's not anything. Oh, so sorry about that. So yeah, Ovechkin at the top there. Among goalies, Jonathan Quick. Uh, there's never been a conversation you've had about goalies that hasn't involved Jonathan Quick at any point. Thomas Greiss probably being the bottom there, despite the fact that Craig Anderson has the lowest goals against and save percentage. Greiss played less games than Anderson in all 10 of those seasons that we took a look at. So despite the fact that Craig Anderson is at the top of this list, being that he is the oldest with 19 years of experience in the league, I would definitely not say that he's the best goalie on this list. So yeah, I believe that's it. That's it for this episode. Just remember, folks, just because you're old doesn't mean that you're slowing down. Some of the older players are slowing down, and there's nothing to really prevent that from happening. Getting old means slowing down, or should mean slowing down. You got people like Ovechkin that's definitely not slowing down. If you take a look at his season stats of year by year, and like I said, despite that 200 points deficit between the first 5 seasons and the last 5 seasons, like still over a point per game player, almost a double point, 2 point per play, 2 points per game player. Jeez. In his first 5 seasons, so there's really no competing with that. Now I have 2 things that I want to ask from you guys before I head out today. Get in the comments. I really want to see people in the comments on this one, because I want to know if you want to see an episode on other players. Like the 35-year-old players. I can do another adjacent episode to this, talking about anybody that's in the next however many I did. I think I ended up doing like 25 to 30, between 25 and 30 players, not age. I could do the next 25 to 30 players in there would be very notable names that a lot of people would be disappointed that I didn't talk about today. That being Giroux and Kopitar and Kessel and especially Crosby. But if you want to see that, and then I also want to know if you want to see an episode talking about the younger side of players. So maybe start at 20, so that we get it would have to be players that have played at least one full season, because that's how I'm able to debate stats and stuff, and then I can go up to however many years that certain player has played in the league so far. So if you want to see an adjacent video talking about the next batch of oldest players, or I can move over to a different stat, maybe discuss longest tenured players instead. So instead of going by age, go by years of experience, which would add Crosby in there, take out a couple of the older players that didn't start playing until they were older. So like we talked about, those 3 players that started in the 2010s. But yeah, I just want to know what you guys want me to do next. I would say the whole spiel of like, share, and subscribe, and tell people that that there's some random guy on the internet talking crap about hockey for a couple minutes every other couple days or whatever. But hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving. I almost forgot to mention that. Thanksgiving tomorrow. Not at the time of recording tomorrow, but when this drops, it'll be Wednesday, the 23rd. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody in America. I'm going to pop this thing up again. And we're going to play the music again because I love it so much. And we're going to get out of here. See y'all later.